Manchester Arena on that dreadful night. I don't speak on behalf of anyone else other than myself, and I want to make that really clear. Today we've learned about the failings of the emergency services. There's no denying that some of these failings led to loss of life. I'm not here to play the blame game. What we learned today will not bring Martyn or anyone else back, for that matter. What is important from this day forward is to learn from these mistakes so that they don't happen to anyone else in the future. We must ensure that the emergency services introduce measures befitting of today's recommendations to ensure that more lives are saved should another such attack happen again in the future, including some of the recommendations in the report, i.e. better communication between all services, establishing a common use of language so that everybody understands the terminology in the same way, joint training exercises on a regular basis, action cards in all services and training on how to use them correctly, understand each other's capabilities between the services, expertise, specialist equipment available and resources, but also limitations. Better communication between senior command structure across all services. Operational discretion rather than just sticking blindly to rules. The use of technology, what was mentioned today was an app for key contacts as a possibility. Regular reviews of operational procedures across all services and, of course, regular updates. Trauma kits widely available at publicly accessible locations. Trauma training for police officers rather than just first aid training. Licensed security people, this is something the SIA need to consider. Young people as part of the national curriculum. Sir John wants this introduced in schools, which I think is the right thing. And just imagine if every school child would learn that, in another decade every adult who would have those skills. And the general public, of course, in the arena there were lots of people from the general public. Had they had the skills, they would have maybe been able to help better. So, and also finally, another point that came out was learning from what other countries are doing. So as many of you know, I have been also campaigning about Martyn's Law. What I ask is the government finally brings forward the legislation required to ensure the country's safety. Despite the apparent government support that I have been promised and I keep being promised, this much needed law appears to be constantly delayed. Had Martyn's Law been in place that night, we now know that precious life would have been saved. We can't turn the clock back, but for every passing day that today's recommendations and Martyn's Law are not in place is yet another day where all of our safety is at risk. Today is not a day for finger pointing, but a day for learning and moving forward with measures to keep us safe. UK politics may well be in turmoil, but there's absolutely no excuse for delaying or weakening legislation that could save thousands of lives. This must be absolutely a priority. The security of all citizens is at risk, and it is about time that the people came first. Now, one last thing I would like to add is that Sir John made a comment about Martyn's Law earlier, the protect duty, to be hurried along for larger venues. That is really important, but a lot of large venues already know what to do, and it will be clearer once the legislation is being issued and they know what to do. But the legislation is crucially important for smaller venues as well, who actually often don't know what to do, and the training of staff, guidelines of what to do in a terrorist attack, that is crucially important, more so for smaller venues. Thank you very much. Want to add something?
Yeah, I'm Martyn's stepfather, and also I'm a doctor, a GP. I've been working in the NHS 30 years, and listening to the evidence has hurt me, the medical failings. So I'd like to just say these few words. I've sat and I've listened, and now we have the evidence. It's absolutely disgraceful that large corporate companies can make money by cutting back on basic first aid measures which have been proven to save lives. I call on the government and the Department of Health and Social Care to follow Sir John's recommendations, to collaborate with the Care Quality Commission and to weed out this shameful practice. Thank you.
OK, so you were listening there to the mother and stepfather of Martyn Hett, who was one of the 22 people killed at the Manchester Arena bombing.